Welcome to Escape the Noise, a podcast about hiking, mental health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Joe Vogel. We're coming to you from the Silicon Slopes studio in downtown Provo, Utah. Our guest this week, Kate Lewis, co-owner of Board Co. and other business ventures in fitness and outdoors enthusiast. Kate grew up in Lebanon, Oregon. She moved to Utah when she was 12 and fell in love with the mountains. Whether hiking, working out, bootstrapping a business, or just about anything else in life, Kate is driven by a unique combination of determination and appreciation. Well, let's dive into hiking in particular.
Let's do it.
I know you're really passionate about hiking. So tell me how you got into that. Like, when did that really start for you, and kind of what role it plays in your life now?
I think I really got into it right after I graduated high school. So 18, 19 years old. And I think I was trying to think of like why I really started into it, but I think a lot of it has to do with I was kind of done with sports at that time.
Yeah.
Like I play for fun now with friends and family, but being able to like be competitive, I guess you could say,
right.
like kind of have that drive naturally all the time. So hiking was a way for me to challenge myself.
Yeah.
And at first, on a total tangent, I have a chest condition that compresses my lungs and my heart. It was really hard for me to breathe. And hiking obviously is difficult because of that.
Yeah.
But it was a way for me to challenge myself and to be able to, I can't necessarily overcome that in a way that it goes away forever, but I can overcome it to the fact where I can push myself a little bit harder every time. So I started hiking with a friend of mine about that age. And so for the last 10, 15 years, it's just part of who I am now. I love it so much. The physical challenge of it, yet the gorgeous nature, all of that together really benefits me.
Yeah. And I think when I talk to people about hiking, there's so many different entry points, right? There's so many reasons why people do it or what they get out of it. You know, you've got ultra competitive people that try to get up as fast as they can. There's people that just are kind of meandering and But it was interesting that part of your response there had to do with, I think this was part of it for me because I played sports in high school as well. Mm-hmm. I'm a competitive person, so it's like there is something satisfying about pushing yourself to do something that's hard, right? And then doing it. I don't really time myself, but it's just kind of like, if getting up to like Squaw Peak or Kaiv Peak now, used to be hard for me and now I can do it pretty easily. Like that feels good for me, right?
Definitely. I think just generally setting a goal and accomplishing that goal is massive for the human brain. Yeah. Whether it's like, checking off a regular daily checklist or like, okay, that's my summit and I'm going to go do it. And I don't time myself. I don't try to do it for speed, especially once I really figured out that I can't breathe. I just simply can't go faster than my body allows it. So now it's just about doing it.
Right.
Getting to that end goal point.
So talk to me about, when you go hiking, first of all, one of the questions I like to ask people is, do you prefer to go solo or do you prefer to go with other people, or is it a mix of both?
It's probably a mix. I think I prefer being with at least one other person. I always have my dog with me. I love having her for protection and that companionship, but having a person with me gives me a sense of safety. And also, sometimes I'll go on hikes and I'll get to a certain point if I'm alone and I'll be like, well, I've gone far enough. I'll turn around. So having someone with me definitely helps me keep going.
Kind of pushes you.
Yeah, it pushes me to keep going. So, I don't often go hiking alone for safety purposes unless it's like close and I've got cell phone range or something like that.
So I've talked to a lot of people about this kind of interesting phenomenon that happens when you're hiking with other people, which is there's almost like a truth serum in the air where suddenly you're having very deep, intense conversations. Is that the case for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Some of my closest friends, we became close because we went on a hike together and we got to ask each other questions that are deeper than what you would ask if maybe you were just hanging out going to dinner or something. So yeah, definitely. That is a thing. That's how I've gained and built some of my closest friends.
It's kind of interesting, that again, I think it almost goes back to that idea of how it brings out these childlike qualities. Because when you see children interact, like they become close very quickly.
Yes.
Right. And it's, I think in part, in our social interactions, especially as adults, like there's all these things that kind of like make us withhold, right?
For sure.
Like, and kind of keep it on the surface, right? And, some of that's inevitable. That's just life. But it is kind of fun that one of the other benefits of hiking is that you can form these really meaningful, deep connections with people.
Yeah. I think nature does that for you without us really asking for it. Because even when you go like camping and you're sitting at the fire and looking at the stars, like naturally you just start opening up and without those distractions, kind of reconnecting with yourself and then connecting with the people around you.
Yeah. What else do you love about hiking?
Goodness, I think I love going back to the basics is one of my favorite things about it. I love recognizing all of God's creations, the small things, the big things, and all of the seasons, whether you're in a place that has 4 seasons like Utah does,
right,
or you're in the desert and it's all just like desert nature, it's all hot and dry, which I actually really love. Or you're on the Oregon coast and everything's just wet and there's moss everywhere.
Yeah.
So I love to observe the nature, and I love knowing that nature itself, it doesn't rush anything. It goes through all of the motions that it needs to. And it kind of contradicts itself in the fact that it's constantly evolving, but it's always the same, if that makes sense. Which I feel like I am that way. I try to be that way, where I recognize who I am, and I'm never going to change who I am because I love who I am. However, I'm always going to try to improve myself and evolve and make who I am even better. And I love to watch that in nature as well.
I think that's a really beautiful point. The seasons, right? The way that we can experience the same thing in different ways, right? It's very cyclical. And even within a season, like if let's say you went on a hike in the fall and it was the exact same hike that you had previously done, you're going to experience it in a different way somehow, right?
Yep.
It's the exact same experience, but every time is unique.
Yeah,
it kind of has its own energy.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And so, I guess connecting that again to your growth as a human being, right?
Yep.
So we have the part that hiking challenges us, right? We have the part like where you're kind of attuned to nature and what that tells us about ourselves, right? And like just how we connect with nature, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is like again a kind of fundamental thing that's been lost.
I agree.
The more society has become digital, we're at a kind of almost scary threshold with AI and everything. And it's going to change, I think, in kind of fundamental ways, what it means to be human, even as people, spend more and more time in virtual spaces, right? Yeah. This need to still connect with nature, right? To still have that kind of part of who we are, right? Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit more, like what that means to you, like especially in the year 2024, like what that means to still do this pretty like simple, like old fashioned thing, right?
It's true though. You really made a great point with the question of like, what does it mean to be human? And I think because of so much technology and advances in the world, which are all wonderful, it can definitely distract from the points of why and who we are, because ourselves, we are nature also, and you have to, for your own sanity and your own health, connect with nature. Otherwise you completely lose yourself in all of the stuff going on in the world. And if you lose yourself, you're never going to grow and succeed in life and happiness. And so I think that's a great point. And it kind of burns a fire inside of me a little bit more to push the points, and encourage people to get out, whatever it means to connect with nature, to them, just get out and do it for their own sanity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it is that kind of urgency. You know?
It is.
You referred to our slogan before, escape the noise, but that was the impetus really, is it's just like, we're at a very precarious moment, I think. And a lot of people are struggling, you know, a lot of people, especially with mental health. And we, you know, like you said, there's a million scientific studies that show the benefits of doing this, right? Yeah. And even though it seems, I like the way you put it, back to basics, right? Yes. It's a simple thing, you know, like going for a walk or going for a hike and reconnecting with nature. These are very simple things, but they have profound effects.
Yes, absolutely. They do. The foundation of our mental health comes from various things, but I think having that connection and that movement, those two things, which is the two things I love about hiking, is the physical activity and the connection with nature. Yeah. Every single time I go out on a hike, I always come back better and happier.
Yeah, I agree. So talk to me, if I can put you on the spot a little bit, about, can you think of like one of your most meaningful experiences, like out in the mountains? Can you think of an example of like just experience you had that was amazing or just meaningful to you in a personal way?
Gosh, so many things come to my mind that I can't really pinpoint one as the best. However, I've had a lot of like animal connections, I guess, you know, or moments with animals, which can sometimes be kind of scary. But, you know, for the most part, it's usually just a beautiful experience to see them out in nature and kind of make that eye contact with them. It's really cool. One time I was actually on the top of Timpanogos, and this is kind of a secret, but I like to hike it for sunset because no one is up there, and I prefer not being around people. So I was up there on the top of Timp, and I was with my dog, and I was with my friend, and I stopped at the saddle, and my friend wanted to keep going to the summit. So I was like, cool, I'll just wait here for you and just enjoy my sandwich. And so I'm the only one up there, and it's silent, and I hear a sound, and my dog's running around off leash. And I thought, oh, that was Bear, my dog. But I heard the sound from over here, and I swear she went that way. So I look over, and it's a mama mountain goat with her little babies, and they were getting really close to me. And I thought, well, this is really cool. But then my dog Bear came next to me, so then the mama starts getting really defensive. Yeah. And I'm all alone up there. It was really scary. And she started kind of like, you know, scratching her hoof on the ground to like warn me that she wasn't happy that I was there. And so that was super scary. So I was able to get up and grab my dog and kind of get out of the situation. But it just was a reminder that she owns that place. Like I'm there visiting in her house, you know, and I got to be respectful of that. And
there were some incidents last summer with the mountain goats, which are, you know, they're usually very friendly and just kind of keep to themselves. Yeah. But they can get like defensive.
Oh yeah, totally. Which they have every right to. And I wasn't, you know, trying to do anything to bother her. But another one that I wanted to share was, it's kind of an overall perspective experience. So like I said, I've spent the last 10 or 15 years just exploring everything in the Wasatch Front. Like I can point at almost every peak and be like, I've been there, you know, and I love that. It's so cool. And what I love most about it is that I've worked hard to get there. Yeah. So I have a friend who is local, and he has a personal helicopter, and he also loves to go hiking and trail running and all of this stuff. And he one day was like, dude, do you want to come up in my helicopter? I'm like, of course. So we went up, and it was a beautiful fall day. The colors were at their peak, and it had rained/snowed the night before. So there was some like low clouds. It was gorgeous. And I remember getting really emotional on that helicopter flight. And I think it took all of my years of hard work and knowing all of those peaks and the roads and the trails that I was looking at to really have that kind of emotion where I was really connected with the mountains. Yeah. And it just made it so much more meaningful to see it from above. And whereas someone else might get up in the helicopter and look down and be like, wow, that's so cool and beautiful. But for me, it just was like this connection that even like my hardest things that I've been through, I kind of have gone to the mountains to deal with those things. Yeah. And so it was suddenly like this huge, like eye-opening experience where I was like, wow, like I have dealt with so many things in those mountains, And here I am just kind of with this overlooking view of it.
I love that.
And it was really, really special.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is in many ways, right? Like, the experiences, right, that you've put into those spaces.
Yeah.
Like spaces have meaning for a number of reasons, right? Like I've always thought like when you learn the history of spaces, it makes them more meaningful.
Yes, definitely.
So, when I moved back to Utah, just recently, like I was reading all of these books about the valley and like, the history of these mountains and like who lived here and when and, who explored and, and even going back to the Native Americans that were in these areas and that all makes it more meaningful to me.
Absolutely.
And then if you put on top of that, like your own personal experiences, and like you said, you're grappling with so much, like you're wrestling with so many things and you can like look at the trails and the peaks and be like,
Yep.
So yeah, I love that. I think that's amazing. I kind of had my own version of that, like just flying in, from the East Coast. And you can kind of, like you said, you can kind of see things that you're familiar with.
Yeah, that connection is pretty unreal.
If you could talk also just about like, do you have, I know Timpanogos is probably a favorite, but, do you have other favorite hikes that you keep going back to?
Yeah, I do. I have a handful that are my favorites. And I think my number one would be, what's the name? It's Squaw Peak, but they changed it.
It's Kive Peak now?
Okay, Kive. I've always wondered how to say it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kive Peak I would say is my favorite all time. And I think that's because it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. And I kind of like, every time I do it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. But the end goal, the reward is like unmatched.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. I love that you can get up there and really see everything in the mountains, but you can also turn around and see it all in the valley.
Yeah.
And back to our point about flying over everything, if you drive up to the lookout, like from Provo Canyon, it's a different experience. It makes a beautiful Sunday drive, but when you're actually like working for a similar view, it makes it so much more meaningful to you. So yeah, I would say that hike. And then I love Stewart Falls. I love Horsetail Falls. As you can tell, I love going to places. Like I don't love to just go like an out and back that doesn't really have like a, something beautiful.
Either a waterfall or a vista.
Summit. Yeah. I've loved to get back into the deeper mountains to like Provo Peak, up in that area, Cascade Saddle area, because it's usually, again, less people.
Yeah.
And the views are just unreal. I love it.
Yeah, those are some good picks. Like I agree with you on Kive Peak, Rock Canyon. It's good prep for hiking Timpanogos. It's a similar incline, probably maybe even more at certain parts.
I would say so.
But short, right? Like 2 or 3 hours there and back. So it's a lot. You can do it as opposed to a whole day that's required for Timpanogos. Yeah, those are fantastic. And then I guess just one last question for you. And this is kind of going back to things that we've talked about throughout our conversation. But, we're trying to really champion mental health, right?
Yeah.
And the connection between hiking and mental health and just doing physical things, getting outdoors. So if you could just speak to that issue and maybe a personal way, just like how it's helped you throughout the years.
Yeah, for sure.
With your own mental health.
Yeah. I think going back to your question earlier about the people that I've hiked with and how when you go on a hike, you just naturally connect with them more than you would anywhere else. I think that same thing goes for yourself. And whether you're on a hike with other people or not, you get to kind of reconnect with yourself.
Yeah.
And when you know who you are and you know your purpose and your why and you're confident in that, then you can't be stopped. Like you're going to still have like struggles and you're going to have anxiety and struggle with depression and all the other things. But if you have that foundation and you're able to stay connected with yourself, which is what hiking or being in the mountains does, then again, you're going to be unshakable. So for me, that's what it has been able to always be connected with myself, really analyze, evaluate what I'm going through, what I want to do, really make a game plan with life.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's almost like therapy, right?
Yes, absolutely it is. Yep.
And I think that's a great connection, that the same type of connection that we often feel with other people, that you can feel that with yourself, which is very important.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Kate, this has been amazing.
No,
thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while, so we appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, I've loved it. I love Timpanogos hiking, and I love to escape the noise.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks again to Kate Lewis for joining us. You can find her on Instagram at @TheKateLewis. Escape the Noise is produced by Timpanogos Hiking Co. I'm your host, Joe Vogel. A big thank you to Kai Bradford, as always, for his assistance with scheduling and production, to the Wildfires for our intro music, and to Silicon Slopes and Weston Tanner for hosting us and helping us make it all happen. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you again next episode.